Good. So on today's talk, we have Dr. Paul Azunre. Paul is a product of Opokuwari for secondary school in Ghana. Of course, he did complete in 2002. He competed in the science and maths quiz as well. But since then, he's done a PhD in computer science from MIT. He's worked, he's been a principal investigator on several defense projects for the US government research program. He founded Algorine as well, which is a research lab dedicated to machine learning and identifying scenarios where machine learning can make social impacts. He also co-founded Ghana NLP, which is an open source initiative focused on NLP and transfer learning with Ghanaian languages. And he contributes also frequently to peer-reviewed international journals, and as well as serve on a lot of program committees at top conferences in the field of machine learning as well. So I remember Paul visited UCC. This was 2019, or Paul, was it 2019? When you visited the University of Cape Coast, and you did make a presentation at the Department of Mathematics then about some of the things that you were doing. And I'm very happy that since then, a lot of things have happened, a lot of great impacts and projects have taken place. And I'm very particularly happy to have you share the current, recent progress on artificial intelligence with respect to Ghana as well, and respect to many other things in your life. So for those who don't know, Paul, he also calls himself maths, coding, beats and flow, and you already heard some of his music, the beats and flow, and now he's going to talk about some maths and code. All right, so Paul, please go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. I hope the sound quality is good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a brief overview of our organization, co-founded together with Steven, and what we've accomplished lately. And then I hope to show some demos and make this very interactive where you yourself can try some things as well. And so for this reason, I'm going to share my screen now, and I want you to take note of a website that I'm going to be showing. Okay, I hope you see it now. So this website here, Linktree NLP Ghana. I hope you can see it clearly. Let me expand it. So please, if you go to this website, you will see a bunch of demos that I've arranged. On the top, you see an image demo, and then there's a chat demo, and then our translator and all the apps and the APIs that we've put out that you can begin to click through as I give the talk. And then at the end of the day, I'm going to go through some of the demos here, and we will talk about them, and you can tell me what you think, or if you have any suggestions. So, of course, it's very important to give some overview of who we are and why we are doing this. So let's start there. The story has been long. I think it's 5 years now, or is getting to 5 years, between 4 and 5 years that we started thinking about this. At the time we started thinking about this, I was working in the field of natural language processing. Coincidentally, as Stephen mentioned, I was working with the US government on an open source project. So nothing top secret or anything like that, but we were trying to use AI basically to automate some data science tasks. At the time, nobody believed that this is something that was possible or feasible, but The US government does this thing where they just kind of invest in moonshot ideas, right? So let's try this thing, see how far we can take it, and maybe we'll learn something, right? And you may not know this, but things like memory foam, for example, came out of those kind of projects. I think memory foam was intended to be for the astronauts when they go to the space station. You see the way it responds to your weight and stuff. It was supposed to help them sleep in space, basically. But as a result of it didn't end up being used in space, but now we use it on Earth, right? So sometimes trying something can be a good idea, right? So this is basically what it was. And the time we were doing this, the BERT model came out. I don't know if you remember this. It has been so long in AI. Right now we are talking about ChatGPT and so on, but all of this stuff started really with models like BERT, right? That's really where the acceleration started. And this is because these models are easier to scale, easier to compute on GPUs and so on. It's easier to crunch a lot of data through them. And so all of a sudden, this model started taking over. And this is how we ended up here. Well, coincidentally, around the time that model was taking off, I was working on something similar. I was working on the predecessor of transformers, which is the recurrent neural networks, right? Those LSTMs and stuff. And we're using it on text for this project for the US government. So we're using it to say pre-process the data, convert the data into the right format, classify it so that the machine knows what is in every column of your data set, right? Those kind of things. So it was really coincidentally that I stumbled across this problem right at the time that it was taking off. And I was talking to Steven, and he had been thinking about it too, right? We didn't see any progress being made for us specifically, meaning Ghanaians. Even though there was a lot of talk, and even today you will see this. There's a lot of investment, and they talk a lot about new projects and chatbots and all this stuff. But often, if you see at the languages they focus on, we are not included. There are good reasons for that, mostly having to do with our population not being large enough to rank in the top. And large population means they can make more money, right? Whoever is investing is going to make more money, or even if it's a non-profit investor, they want to say, I made impact. Impact usually means number of people, right? So we don't have the numbers to be a priority, right? For this big international project. However, we care about this, right? We need to see that it gets done, right? So this is basically the idea that led to the formation of this group. We've gone through a lot of different iterations of it, in the sense of, how are we going to do this? Are we going to be open source, fully open source, somewhere in the middle, all the way private, right? What's the best model here? And this is something that has to be discussed carefully, because there are a lot of, let's say, national security implications here, right? For example, chatbots and translators and all this AI can be used to generate content to manipulate elections, right? We know this is true. This has already happened. This has already happened in Ghana, right? There was a scandal some years back where actually it was found that it was being tested in Ghana by foreigners, right, on Facebook. Those kind of things, right? Are we going to just sit around and let that kind of stuff happen? Or should we be in control and in charge of this technology that affects us directly, right? That is based on our culture, right? Shouldn't we be the ones deciding and defining the cutting edge, how far to push it, and so on? And at the end of the day, shouldn't we be the ones to benefit from anything that comes out of it, right? Because this tech has built a lot of wealth around the world. We know this. Are we going to just allow, essentially a modern form of colonization to happen, where they come, they take our data, they build products, they sell it back to us, our data, our culture, we pay them money and they export it, right? Are we going to allow this to happen? It doesn't make sense, right? We need to be taking advantage of the technology and using it to develop our society, right? So this is kind of the things that we've been discussing, we've been finding. This is definitely not a problem that's already solved or that we are cut in stone, but we want to keep discussing it and make sure that some of these concepts are front and center, right? Are we building something self-sustaining, right? Because if something, that's the first bullet point here. Because if something is self-sustaining, it's going to be hard for some politicians to manipulate it for their personal gain, right? If something is self-sustaining, it's going to be hard for some foreign influence to come in and take over it, right? Because it's going to be paying for itself. Everything goes back to money, right? So we have to be self-sustaining. This is why we are putting out products, right? This is why we've moved a bit away from the open source model. We still do open source work. That's very important because one of our goals is to build an ecosystem. If you look down, the fourth bullet point says build an ecosystem. We have to build an ecosystem. We have to make sure that there's data for startups, students who have ideas can try them, that kind of stuff. We have to mentor students. We have to make sure that the next generation is ready to continue what we've done, to join in and maybe even beat us at it, right? We hope they do, right? Because then we all win. So we need a local ecosystem. So we do a lot of open source work. However, we do keep some things, for the benefit of organization and this mission, right? We do have certain things we keep private that go into our products. So that then the idea is we can monetize this product. So for example, you may have seen on Twitter, the text-to-speech demo, for example. That's a very hot thing. People want to pay money for it, right? We offer it for free to the public. But if you are fully funded startup with millions of dollars and you want to build a product on this, yeah, pay for it. We will take that money and we will reinvest it in the process. This is where the self-sustaining part comes in. Everything that comes from here goes back into research, more data. One day we hope to hire a team full-time for every aspect of this, right? Whether it's the engineering, the data science, the data creation, the linguistics, the operations around all of this. And as a result, what are we doing? We are creating jobs, right? We are creating jobs, we are paying people, and they're reinvesting it in the community. This is very important. And this is something I have to highlight. I really have to stress, because what happens when you choose to use Kaya over some foreign product in some for solving some problem? What are you doing? You are literally enabling us to invest in our community. When you use the foreign product, I'm sorry to say this, but most of the time it means the money goes somewhere abroad and it doesn't come back to Ghana. So to the extent that we are providing useful solutions, and often in a lot of things we do, we actually provide the best solutions out there for our languages. Not always, but a lot of the time we do. And our mission is to reach there if we don't. But if we do provide a better solution, and you have the choice to choose between, say, Google, Facebook, and Ghana NLP, and our solution is the best, and it's a Ghanaian one where it's going to really invest in our community, please pick us. That's all I'll say. Yeah, so I think I've covered this slide pretty well. Please try the app. You probably have it if you're here. I hope you've gone to the demo page. I'll highlight it again. If you haven't seen it, go to the demo page now, because I'm going to do a lot of demos here that are linked over there. Okay, so just to remind us why the name Kaya, right? So the inspiration for this was the African mahogany tree, which is also on my t-shirt here. It's the scientific name of the African mahogany tree is Kaya senegalesis, and it's found all across Africa, and it's a very nourishing thing that you may not have even heard the name, but you've used this. Your survival probably dependent on this. Whether it's timber, whether it's firewood, whether it's medicine, throughout Africa, they use it for everything, all the above, right? So we felt this was a very poignant representation or a metaphor. it's also, there's a double entendre because it's also in some Southern African languages, this is a word for home. So we do think of Africa as our home. So not just of us as individuals here, but humanity in general, right? So that also was a good choice, we felt. Yeah, here we go. So one of the things that we, one of the design principles behind the system is that it should be able to take feedback from users and to incorporate it into future versions of the product. And this is kind of something we've been doing, and this I'm showing some diagrams visualizing that process. So anything that the user submits, we kind of store it somewhere, and eventually experts are going to review this. And anytime we update the model, we include whatever we learn from this process in the next version. And these are some of the private, this, for example, is like intellectual property of Ghana NLP that makes our app unique, right? So this is not data you find somewhere, but our users are giving it to us because they want the app to improve, right? So we have that data. And among our benchmarks, and this is important to mention, that we were the first to provide text translation for any Ghanaian language, right? And you could argue that we love Google and they funded some of our work, but we could argue that essentially our work influenced and stimulated or enabled these big companies like Google and Facebook, and now there's Cohere for AI, to do everything they're doing in our languages. Because we've put out some open source data, and even if you read their papers, they've cited our work. Facebook used it, you know, so we are even helping our competitors, right? So this is important to highlight. Yeah, so over time we've hit this following benchmarks. You know, our Google Translate outperforms our Yoruba outperforms Google Translate on news. We have been adding a lot of languages like Dagbani, Gorne, and these are some of like the blue scores that we've seen. So our tree model is the best one, and that isn't surprising. Dagbani is pretty close because we have the most data in tree and the highest quality data in tree. By the way, if anyone wants to interrupt me, if you have questions, please do, because I meant for this to be an interactive conversation. Now, you can speak to the app and it will kind of transcribe what you're saying in text. So it essentially can hear what you're saying and transcribe it, right? So this is speech recognition. It can do that. And specifically, you know, when we first put out this app, it wasn't that good because the amount of data we used wasn't that good. And you can see this word error rate scores. That's how they measure speech recognition in AI and machine learning. Weren't that good, you know, like 30, around 30. And this is, you know, it kind of is like, if no system like that existed before, that's cool, but it isn't really practical. So when people started putting it in products, they told us, look, it's not, you know, it needs to improve a lot. And we're very grateful for that feedback because it pushed us to create more data, improve the modeling process. And so now we're able to have the tree speech recognition, right? And this is dramatic because, I mean, if you open the app now and talk to it, you know, select tree, and then there will be a microphone button next to it. You press it and you speak to it, or our web app, which I will demo in a second. You will see that it's pretty good. It picks up most things, and it has been tested now by companies, and they're saying, yes, this is actually practical now. So this is very important to highlight. The other languages, as you can see, we still need to have a lot of work to do. So anybody in here now who is inspired to help us or join in, please. There's a lot of work to do, a lot of exciting work to do. But I hope you saw how the Ghanaian community was excited to see some of the things we put out lately. So there's a lot of impact to be had here. Okay, so I think based on time and so on, you probably have seen the demos on, the people in this room have probably seen, or there are 19 of you. I didn't realize there were this many people. So let me play some short ones just to remind you. Not this one. You've seen this one. I'm sure you've seen this one. So if you go to my X, you can see my voice-to-voice demo. So you can speak to the app in one language, and then it will generate, say, Chi out. You can do the reverse as well. But let me show you this demo, which does that from text, from English text to Chi voice. It's very short, so it's conducive. All right. So as you can see, it's pretty good. The voice quality is pretty good. The translation is pretty good. And you can enter this text into the app using your voice, because your phone can understand English already, right? So you can input it there using your voice. So this is essentially voice-to-voice system. Okay. So let's. You may have seen this one already. So let's see another one. This one is going to show us how, even if the text is a bit more complex than the one that, and this, by the way, these are all made by Lawrence, who is here. So shout out to Lawrence for this awesome demo. So we're going to play this. That's a long passage.
We can't hear the sound.
Oh, really? Really? Okay. Did you hear the previous one?
No.
No.
Oh. 1 second. Share computer sound. It disabled. Anyway, let's see. The previous one is on X or Twitter. So if you go, you see it. This one is not. So. All right. Can you hear it now?
Ye efri nkwaso foforo no mu ba ne se wode amano ne sika didi dwuma nyene se wode bedi dwuma de enya wiase emiaye a enya nkoso pii no nkoso sika a wode hye etubra foforo ase no kosoro chen se ebete sunsunoye a eda wiase aman a wodi hie ne aman a wodi hiantam no so adesua efa ensusuye hunu a wodi aniwa huhu ensem a efa ensusuye a wodi susu noma hono a enkoye hono ama yenya ehunu mu pii won susuye ahodo a aniwa hyehyeye no de ba no ho
Ye wapara wo anuanom merima no mu nso akoye se ne ho ye anika yi obi betumi agye akyinye a omre kora se ono na ne ho ye anika para wo kuro no mu nanso afei de menye nkayefu yi sɛdeɛ meyɛ kane no sɛdeɛ asafo awurade siini nanso afei de menye nkayefu yi sɛdeɛ meyɛ kane no sɛdeɛ asafo awurade siini
So I hope you agree that it's pretty good quality tree. And also, it can do long passages, and the reason I'm highlighting that is that, we can now begin to do, I don't know, YouTube videos and news podcasts, like really practical things. It's no longer limited to rather short passages. Yeah. So now let's do these demos, the other ones that I talked about. I don't know, has anyone been able to go to the links and try anything? You can tell me yes or no, if you can. So I know that somebody, that you guys can access my pages. I'm gonna grab a cat video or a cat image and show you what this system can do. Okay. So this is a image caption. This is an example of an application of the API, right? You can, for example, upload an image like this, and then you select the language that you want to work in. So we're going to go with 3, but there's a whole long list, including Swahili and some Kenyan languages. I've included a description here. This should be accessible to everybody here. I hope you feel special because it's public, but we haven't yet announced it. So you're among the first people to try this. So then you submit your image to the system. And what it should do is detect the object in the image and describe it, and also draw a box around it. It's taking a second. Oh, there we go. Can't really see this writing, but it's okra, yeah. Hey, well, a close-up of a cat, and then it says a dog in the translation. You see, so this is a good example in that it's not perfect, right? But if you look at the image, it does say okra. It did detect the cat in it, but the translation of the caption to the tree from English, because that's how it works, wasn't perfect. It said a dog looking at the camera, whereas the English caption said a cat looking at the camera. So, but putting it all together, it's doing okay. Let's try another example, maybe. Let's try, a dog, maybe. Anyway, actually, I'm running out of time. So you can try this yourself, but this has been tested. And so let me know what your experience is. You can tag me, you can post this online, not the link, but the images. And, tag me and let's have a discussion on X or wherever. Now let's try this one. This is kind of exciting because we're going to talk to the chatbot, right? So this model, this is the second demo. It's using this model called Mixtral, which is open source, and an open source large language model, and it's translating from your queries from your local language into English, asking it of the large language model, translating it back into your local language. So again, there are a whole range of languages available. We are going to focus on 3. I have some preset questions that I want to ask it, but you should go crazy and ask whatever you want. I put it here just so that I don't have to type because I don't have the 3 keyboard on here. So what if we asked it, like, how are you doing, right? What will it say? I'm going to input the text here. What's it saying? And it says, artificial intelligence, I'm artificial intelligence and I do not have feelings. but I'm here to and ready to assist you. How can I help you? Right. So we put output both the English and the Twi just so it's clear we are doing a translation and you can compare both side by side in case there's something that's breaking. Okay, so let's ask it something like, the other questions I have, like within the saying, it will answer, yeah, within the Kaya. So that's not that interesting. But let's say, who is the president of Ghana or something like that? So I'm going to ask that now. So this is like an example. Someone coming to this app may ask it, right? And you can imagine, you can use your voice to interact with this because as we already showed, we have the speech, ability to capture speech and convert it to text. So this is already, you could chat with this using your voice, right? That's kind of sci-fi, but maybe that could work sometimes. So what does it say? It says, as of my last training, the president of Ghana was Nana Akufo-Addo. And then it says, please verify this because, this may not be true or, LLMs hallucinate. So this is not going to always be perfect. But as you can see, a lot of the time you can give useful results. Okay, so let's say the same question, but Mali or something. Because that one is actually something that changed recently. So now I'm asking it, who is the president of Mali, right? And it says Assimi Goïta, which is actually correct. This is the interim president, I think, unless something changed. That's possible. So my final example is, name 10 African countries. And this is an example that came, my friends at Lisan suggested because they've seen ChatGPT claiming that it can speak their language, but when they ask it this simple question, it can't do it. Now that we've put it out in public, they'll probably go and teach it to do it, but as of now, it can't do this. So name 10 African countries, right? This is something a student might ask. And, it does answer it pretty well. It gives you a list of the countries. Nigeria, Egypt, Ethiopia, Congo. I don't know if that South Africa translation. Africa KCFM. It's a literal translation, so it's not perfect. But as you can see, it does pretty well, and then it says there are 55 countries. So again, this is a chatbot number one, right? Just based on simple translation, nothing is being done in native language. We do have to collect data in the native language, conversations in the native language without any translation. Fewer places for it to break down, and also we can't be constricted to the Anglo-centric viewpoint, right? We need to develop tools in our own languages. So I really wanted to leave some time for questions. I hope you try, or discussion, I hope you're going to try the demos that I shared with you. They're available to you, and let us know what you think. So at this point, I'll welcome a discussion or some questions. I see Selican raise his hand.
Yes, Paul.
Salo.
Thanks so much. This is exciting. I just tried the chatbot. I did some Uber with it and say this is amazing. The depth
Awesome.
of the response to the question, like providing more details, it's just exciting. I was wondering if there is any specific training that needs to be given to the system to be able to translate things that are idiomatic, that are, culturally specific. For instance, I said Akpena, which means thank you, in Uber, and the response the bot gave me was, welcome, and in Uber we don't say welcome. So I don't know if there are any efforts.
Yes.
I mean, I'm part of the team, and so if there's any help you need from me as regards, training the system for things like this, this idiomatic expressions, I'll be very happy to help. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are two things we can do. We can create more data in Ewe of the idiomatic expressions, right? And if we did that, our translator would get, when you said welcome, it wouldn't literally say you are welcome, right? It would pick the right thing because it's in the training data. That is within this translation framework. But as I mentioned earlier, what we really need to do at the end of the day is to do it in the local language, so directly in Ewe. So you can imagine collecting Ewe conversations where the natural flow of conversations, hello, how are you, thank you, you're welcome, right? It's actually just without translation, it's just in Ewe, right? This is what follows this kind of question, right? And so we'll train a model in the same way they train the LLMs in English, right? We will train models in Ewe. We'll train. This is harder, obviously, more computing costs. We have to create the data and so on. This is why we started with the translation. So, but those are both things we could do. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Salome, I see your hands up.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. For such
Good to
a
see you.
wonderful presentation. Yeah, so I have a concern, and it is about the speech recognition stuff. So I could hear male voices, and do you have any reason for that? Is it solely like male voices?
You mean speech synthesis?
Yeah. I mean, the demo that I just gave. Yeah. So I think maybe ethically this could raise some form of concern, because it could introduce gender bias, where people may think that maybe NLP tax is more of like male dominated, or it's only for the male, it's only for males, right? So I think moving forward, you can have a gender neutral voice that could help with the speech synthesis applications. Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you for that. That's a very important point to raise. And this is something is always top of mind for us. The gender bias is a big issue. The issue is that we have a lot of constraints, right? The reason why this voice is male is because the largest data set we found that was available to us was male. In fact, when we first created, you may not have seen this, but the initial release of our model was female. We really wanted to make it female because of some of the things you're mentioning, but also just to have variety, right? Just because we want representation, right? Just the simple fact that our society looks different and we can't just lock it. But the quality of that wasn't very good because the amount of data we have isn't very good. And so compared to this other voice, which is mind-blowing in terms of how good it is, it's like our hands are tied. We have to release something. This is what we have. We do want to collect more data. We want to, in fact, this is a project that's ongoing right now. But you can imagine it takes time, it's very expensive. We'll get there though. And so thank you for raising it, and a very important thing to highlight.
Thank you.
Any other questions, concerns? Stephen, how much is top of the hour?
Yeah. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What about? Do you talk about funding opportunities and stuff like that? Do you get some funds from other organizations like the Ghana government, or like some big I mean, apart from Google, you mentioned already, do you get some funding from other governments, some maybe big organizations willing to support you? Also, especially because recently Google is also saying they are doing data collection in tree and trying to develop the same things. So what would be your remark on that?
Yeah, so I think that's inevitable. It's absolutely inevitable that people will develop, and part of the reason they will develop that is us, right? Because we will do it in a lot of cases. We do things and people see it, they see the reaction of the community to it, and they see, oh, there's a market here, right? And so they move in there. And so we benefit from it too, right? Because the fact that now there's 3 Google Translate means we have something to compare against. There's something that keeps us honest. And look, we are committed to having the best solution out there, right? It's going to be hard, going toe to toe with like Google or Facebook, of course. However, I still think we can do it better, or in a way we can, by having the right model, there's a chance for us to force them to do it the right way. And here's what I mean. If you read a lot of the work, say Google has done or Facebook has done, and this is friendly criticism, right? Criticism is the best form of flattery. Their focus seems to be on taking people out of the process so that they don't have to invest in the communities from which this culture is coming from, right? So Google has a 0 resource translation paper, which means they've worked really hard to make sure they don't have to ask any human being to submit parallel data, right? Which is very expensive, right? Admittedly. However, this is not how they built tools for their own languages, right? So for English to French and stuff, they invested heavily. And this is why that stuff is better than the stuff they're putting out for our languages, right? So it's like they're doing something inferior for our languages because they're trying to avoid having to invest in our communities, right? And none of those things work for me, right? That we as Ghanaians should not accept that as something, the status quo, right? We want to invest in our communities. We want the best possible solutions. So we will do it the right way, right? And to the extent that what we are doing is the right choice, and the proof is still in the pudding, right? We don't know yet if it is the right choice. Maybe we will lose this, right? But at the very least, we will be around, and if it is the right way to invest in communities, to create high quality data, to nurture an ecosystem, which I believe is the right way, then we will win. Or we will only lose if they do the right thing, if they do these things, right? So we will force them to be honest and do the right thing for us. So either way, we're winning, right? That's the way I see it. I hope that's, and Google has funded our work, right? So there's always a way to find like a common ground, or like a place where we can agree and push it a little bit forward, reevaluate and see. Yeah.
Perfect. So thank you very much for this has been very good.